Hello, in this video we are going to understand and discuss Azure SQL single database provisioning. So the single database resource type creates a database in Azure SQL database with its own set of resources and is managed via a server. That server is a logical SQL server which is maintained by Azure. So with a single database, each database is isolated and portable. Each has its own service tier within the DTU based purchasing model or vCore based purchasing model and a guaranteed compute size. Single database is a deployment model for Azure SQL database. The other is Elastic Pools. It has a dynamic scalability so that you can build your first app on a small single database at low cost in the serverless compute tier or a small compute size in the provisioned computer tier. You change the computer or service tier manually or programmatically at any time to meet the needs of your solution. You can adjust performance without downtime to your app or to your customers. Dynamic scalability enables your database to transparently respond to rapidly changing resource requirements and enables you to only pay for the resources that you need when you need them. A single database also has a flexibility that a single database can be moved into or out of an elastic pool for restoring for resource sharing. For many businesses and applications, being able to create single databases and dial performance up or down on demand is enough, especially if usage patterns are relatively predictable. But if you have unpredictable usage pattern, it can make it hard to manage costs and your business model. Elastic pools are designed to solve this problem. The concept is simple. You allocate performance resources to a pool rather than an individual database and pay for the collective performance resources of the pool rather than for single database performance. In addition to that, monitoring and alerting is one of the key things that comes with a single database. So you use the built-in performance monitoring and alerting tools combined with the performance ratings, and using these tools you can quickly assess the impact of scaling up or down based on your current or project performance needs. Additionally, SQL database can emit metrics and resource logs for easier monitoring. In terms of availability capabilities, single databases and elastic pools provide many availability characteristics. The availability characteristics are automatic backups, point-in-time restores, active geo-replications, auto failover groups, zone redundant databases, and built-in intelligence. In addition to that, most Transact SQL features that applications use are fully supported in both Microsoft SQL Server and Azure SQL Database. And in terms of security, SQL Database provides a range of built-in security and compliance features to help your application meet various security and compliance requirements. Now, let's go and create a single database on our Azure portal. So for that, we just have to go to our Azure portal. And once you land on the Azure portal homepage, what you can do is you can click on create resource, or you can click on home, and you can click here and you can come and click on SQL databases, or from the option here you can click on Azure SQL, or you can click on SQL databases, or you can go to the search and you can here type Azure SQL, and from the list you can select Azure SQL. So I'm just selecting Azure SQL here, and this will show a page wherein you will have two options. On the top left hand side of the screen we have an option called create, and in the center of our screen we have an option called create Azure SQL resource. Since we want to create a Azure SQL single database, so what I want to do is I will click on this create button, and you can see that it is showing us three options, which is SQL database, SQL managed instances, SQL virtual machines. But today in this video we are just focusing on the single database at the moment. So before I create it, let us just click on this show details. Here you will get some idea like what exactly we can achieve when we create a single database. So here it is listing some of the featured capabilities that you can use serverless compute, we can use easy management, you can hyperscale storage. These are some of the service tiers, compute tiers that you can select when you want to provision your DB. And then again, let's say if you have multiple database, if you want them to be queue into the elastic pool, then you can go for that. And here the features capabilities are resource sharing of cost optimization. So this will affect the impact, this will impact the cost, and probably this is make your multiple database work more cheaper than go for a single database. So that is a different scenario wherein you can go for elastic pool. And then finally we have a database server wherein you have access management, backup management, and business continuity management. So in here, since we are focusing on the single database, just click on create. Once you click on that, here it will show you some of the things that you need to fill in. That is the subscription. So I have selected Academy training subscription, and you have to, you also have to have a resource group. Since this is the first time I'm creating this resource, which is a SQL resource and SQL DB. So for any resource you want to create, you have to have a resource group into the Azure cloud. Likewise the same applies for this resource as well. So we are going to create a SQL resource, and for this we need a container, and our resource group is a container which keeps all the services other than SQL resource also. So what I'll do is I'll click on create new, and here I'll give the name as DP300 Academy, and I'll say RG-RG. RG stands for resource group. So any name you can give here, just for the naming convention I want to follow. So I'm just giving here the name as RG, and you can click OK. Once you do that, the next section is the database details. Here you can give the database name. So I want to give the database name as DP300 Academy -DB, and then you need to select a server. At the moment, since this is completely new, this is the first resource I'm creating, I don't have any SQL Server available at the moment. Maybe in real world scenario, when you are being asked to create a SQL DB, you probably need to select one of the SQL Server which has been created earlier in your organization. But since there is no SQL Server available here, so what we can do is we can click on create new, and here we need to provide the server name. So I'll be providing DP300 Academy -server. This name has to be unique across all the Azure cloud, and then it has to follow some criteria, which is the server name should not contain reserved words. So once the validation passes, that means you are good to go. And our next option which you have to select is the location. So I'm selecting West Europe, but this is up to you. Whatever the option you are required as in location to select, you can go for that particular location for you. And the next thing is here you have to provide the admin credentials. So I'm just selecting the default option here as use SQL authentication, even though there are two different other authentication options are there, but just for the simplicity's sake, I'm just using the SQL authentication. And here you have to provide the server admin login name. So I am giving the name as DP300 Academy -user. Again, the name has to be this name has to follow a certain criteria. It will get validated. As you can see that your login name must not contain a SQL identifier or typical system name like admin, administrator, SA, root, DB manager, login manager. So these are some of the examples they have shared with us, and whatever name we choose here, I mean that name should meet up the criteria, and it should get validated. And as you can see that there is one more criteria, that your login name must not include non-alphanumeric characters. So make sure that when you are creating a username, it should not contain that. Also, your login name must not start with numbers or symbol. So it is as simple as that. You have to fulfill the criteria, then only it will allow you to go ahead with creating the password. So now I'll create a password and I'll give a password here. So as you can see, even when I'm trying a password, it has some criteria to fulfill. So your password must be at least 8 characters in length, so which is it is, and then it must be no more than 128 characters in length. So the maximum number of characters you can choose for your password is 128 characters. I can't imagine how somebody can keep that much long password, but anyway, this is one of the criteria. So you have an option of selecting your password that much long, and then your password must contain characters from 3 of the following categories, which is the English uppercase letters, English lowercase letters, and numbers 0 to 9, and non-alphanumeric characteristics. So characters. So these are exclamation, dollar, hash, percentile, etc. So you can see, you can use the combination of these characters and you can create a password. And then your password cannot contain all part of the login name. That means whatever the login name you're choosing, it should not your password should not contain that login within your password information. So fine, I think we have met the criteria, and as you can see, the green tick, all green ticks here, that means we have fulfilled the criteria. I'll be entering the confirm password here, and once it is done, click on OK. So this is how you can fulfill the SQL Server information, and then once you click OK, it will again take us back to the create SQL database page. Mind you, here so far we have not created any single database. It is just we are kind of filling the information that we want to create a SQL server, we want to create a SQL database, and there are some other configuration settings that we are going to fulfill now. So here asking that want to use SQL Elastic Pool. Well, at the moment we are just creating a single database, so we don't require it. However, maybe in future when we'll be dealing with multiple databases, at that point of time we'll be discussing about how you can add databases to this Elastic Pool and how you can make use of it. For now, I'm just selecting as no. And then we have a compute storage section. This is one of the important section wherein it decides what will be the pricing tier of service you are going to select. By default, it has selected standard SO 10 DTUs and 250 GB storage. So if you want to change that, you can click on configure database. So we'll be looking in detail about what is the configure database options are. So we have the service and compute tier option here, and within the service tier we have two type of purchasing model. One is vCore based purchasing model and another is DTU based purchasing model. So vCore stands for virtual core and DTU stands for database transformation unit. Okay, so these are two purchasing model, and within DTU based purchasing model we have again three service tiers, which is basic, standard, and premium. So and within vCore based purchasing model we have general purpose, we have hyperscale, and we have business critical. So these are some of the tiers which decides what type of hardware configuration you require for your SQL DB, and depending on that your estimated cost per month will be calculated. As you can see that by default that standard service tier has been selected, and you can see on the right hand side there is a estimation cost which is 1080 INR rupees per month, and you can see that there are DTUs selected, 10 DTUs. So by default 10 DTUs are selected, and if I change here to 10 to let's say 20, so you can see the pricing is also getting changed, and the maximum data max size is here to 250 GB. Let's say if I don't want standard one, if I go for a basic one, then if I go for a basic one, by default it is pre-configured, and it contains 5 DTUs only, and there is a fixed data max size which is 2 GB, and based on DTU it will cost you and that is 71.92. It is charging for 1 DPU, so that is for 5 DPUs it is going to charge me 359.58 INR. Let's say some other options as well. If I select vCore based purchasing model, and let's say if I go for a general purpose, then within general purpose again we have a compute tier. That means wherein you have a full control over the hardware part of it. So what you can do is if you click on provision, then again here in the hardware configuration by default it has selected Gen 5 hardware configuration, and if you just click on the change configuration here, so you will see that within SQL hardware configuration there are other configuration sets available, that is FSV2 series and DC series. Okay, so by default it has selected Gen 5, so I don't want to change that and I'll go with it. And in that you can see the detail that the Gen 5 contains max can have max 50 vcores, and then max memory you can consume is 408 GB, and max storage can be 4 TB, and based on that, you know, the compute cost is will be calculated per vcore per month. So here I'll be selecting Gen 5. I'm clicking OK, and here on the right hand side you can see that Gen 5 general purpose, this is the one which it is showing that cost per vcore in INR. So for this Gen pack, for 1 vcore it is 14,333.36, and how many vcores has been selected? 2. So if I just come down here, so you can see that 2 vcores are selected. If I just select more than 2, what will happen? Again it is, you know, calculating that vcores. If I just go back with the default one, you know, again the pricing will get changed, and you can also save money. So that means here Azure is giving you an option that if you already have a SQL Server license with you, so what you can do is you can click on yes, and the moment you click on yes, you know, the pricing tier has been discounted with 37% here, and here you can see that as a Azure hybrid benefit discount which is 37%, and here you can notice that we have two vcore selected. For that it is this much, and then the finally this is the 18,360.17 INR is the final amount. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to use this service tier at the moment. For our demo I'll be selecting the basic tier, which will be more than enough for the demo which I want to show you guys, so that you know now on the right hand side it has calculated the estimated cost as 359.5 INR, which, you know, which is per month I have to pay. Okay, click on apply. Once you click on apply, then click on next networking, and here in networking if you want to make your SQL DB available on the public endpoint, then you can click public endpoint so that outside the cloud it can be accessed. And 2 more options are there: allow Azure service, so click yes, and add current client IP address. I'll say yes. Current client IP means our system IP through which, you know, our system IP through which we are running this browser, so it will automatically allow our client our system IP. And then for the connection policy, I'm just going with the default policy which says uses redirect policy for all client connections originating inside of Azure, and proxy for all client connections originating outside Azure. Okay, I just want to go with that. Then we have a minimum TLS which is nothing but a transport layer, so I'll just go with the default option. Click on security, and let's say if you want to add more security, which is unified security package including vulnerability assessment. So if you want to have extra security for your SQL DB, then you can select start free trial. So for the initial 30 days it is free, and then the following months it will start charging you 1080.6789 rupees per server per month. So I don't want to select this. I'll be going with not now, and I'll go with the default options, and I'll click on additional settings. In additional setting, here we have option called data source. Under data source we have use existing data. So if at all we have a a backup available, and if you want to restore, then you can click on backup, and from here you can select the backup. And let's say if you want to create an empty database, so you can click none. And let's say if you want to, just for a demo sake, you want to create a database with some sample data, then you can click on the sample option. Okay, fine. Once you do that, you can click on review plus create. So I'm just going to click that, and here it will show you the summary of the settings that you have done during the process of creating the SQL DB. So it will again show you the summary of the information about the basic, wherein you have selected the subscription as Academy training subscription, your subscription name, your resource group name, the region, database name, server name, authentication method, server admin login name, and then compute storage that you are going to use, networking. All these are the one which you have selected. So it will show you the complete information of that. Now you can simply click on create button. So once you click on create, it will start creating our single SQL DB, and in the notification you can see that initializing deployment and submitting deployment. That means it has started in the background of for creating our SQL DB, and here you can see the deployment is in progress, which means that it is going to create our SQL Server SQL DB. So I'm just pausing the video here. Once it's get completed, I'll resume back, and from there on we'll continue our discussion. So now we have completed the deployment, so it will give you a message as your deployment is complete. And if you click on the notification here, you will see the notification that deployment succeed. Okay, fine. So now what we'll do is either we can click on go to resource from here or from here, but what I'll do is I'll simply click on home, and then I'll go to resource groups, and within resource group it will list out the resource group that we have created during the creation of our SQL DB. So I'll click on this resource group. Then within my resource group, we have our SQL database and SQL Server. Let's say if I click on SQL Server, so here within SQL Server it will list out our SQL database as well. Okay, so before that, you can just notice that here we have a resource group name, and here we have a server admin username. It is showing the status as available, and then we have a firewall virtual networks. So if you click on show firewall settings, so it will show you the firewall setting, and then it is giving the location information, and then subscription name and subscription ID. So these are some of the important things which can be useful when you are trying to interact with SQL Server from outside the cloud or within the cloud as well. Here we have a JSON view of setting of the SQL Server. So this is how it looks like. Just close it, and then what I'm going to do now is I'll be clicking on the database, which is DP300 Academy DB. So I'm just clicking it, and here you can see that we have a resource group at DP300 Academy RG, and then our server name, the server name which we have seen in the earlier, that our DB is residing under this server name. And as you can see, at the moment there is no elastic pool, but in future when we'll be talking about elastic pool, then we'll be discussing about elastic pool, that how you can work with the multiple database, and how you can make use of elastic pool. And now here it is showing you that Academy training subscription, which is a subscription name and subscription ID, and here it is showing you the pricing tier as basic. So this is the one we have selected, and you can click on the JSON view. Here it will show you the complete information, whatever we have seeing on the UI side. So you can see the location, you can see the ID, you can see the name, you can see the type, right? So all sort of information. So just click on close here. And the next thing what we want to do here is, if you want to access our database within cloud, then we have a feature called query editor. So what you can do is you can click on query editor. This will allow you to log in and access to your database. So here by default, it is taking the admin username. So here we need to enter the password that we have given at the time of configuring our SQL Server setting. So now I am here giving my password, and then click on OK. seems to be some problem. Fine. So and also, if you remember, at the time of creating our SQL DB, we have selected option. We had an option of selecting as none or backup or sample. So we have selected the option as sample, which means we wanted our database to be created with some sample data. So if you just expand this, so here it will show you the list of tables, sample tables, okay, and a list of sample views. Fine, and a list of sample procedures, store procedures. So the way we write queries into the SSMS SQL Server Management Studio, the same way we can execute our queries inside this query window as well. So I'll just paste one of the query here, and as you can see that we want to select top 20 category name and product name from product category, and we are joining it with the product table, and based on product category ID we want to fetch the data. And you can see here we have that table exists into the database, that is product category, and we have a product. Fine. So let us run this query and see whether it is executing successfully. So click on run. So as you can see that we have a result here, and if we just go side here, so you can see the result of the queries. So that way you can execute your queries. So this is the end of our video, and in this video we have discussed about Azure SQL single database provisioning concepts, and we have used query editor to query the data from the created database which is having some sample data. Thank you.